Hello, everyone. It's Mariposa Young coming to you. And I'm not even that cute this lazy Sunday, but I just had a longing to talk to you about the term empath. Do any of you identify yourselves as an empath? So I wanted to share my personal history with that term empath and let folks know that do identify as empaths, how some folks might be interpreting that term, especially Gen Z folks like myself, probably more than younger folks. So when I was a kid, empath was not a word. It was not in popular culture. It just wasn't a thing. That you could have empathy for other people, or you could have a lack of empathy for other people, but taking the Y off and making that into a noun, proper noun, was not a thing when I was a kid and young. And then when I was in my 20s, I started working professionally as a reader, a psychic reader, and with a few different modalities. And I also belong to a coven, a Wiccan coven. And in those metaphysical circles, we weren't using empath to say that you had sensitivity to other people's energies. We used a lot of different terms, but we did not use empath. We used, you could be gifted, you could have metaphysical talent, you could be psychic, you could be sensitive, you could be spiritually sensitive, you could be a seer. All those kind of things were floating around as descriptions of being able to read for other people. And still to this day, when I do palm readings in particular, there are formations in the hands that can say whether you have talent at reading energy. And that's how I describe it, that you're really sensitive to reading energy of other people, but also environments that you're in. And I describe it that way. And I don't use the word empath even now. And here's why. So, I just moved the camera around a lot. Here's why. So, for several years, my mother has given me the silent treatment. And early on, that was very emotionally painful. And I was watching a lot of YouTube videos about the silent treatment. And most of what I saw kind of divided people into being narcissistic or empaths. It's like pop psychology, right? Also, just to give you some background about me, I lived through trauma with a capital T in my childhood. And, I'm being invaded. I have PTSD. And so I have a history of doing therapy for myself. So also my mother, who is not great with me, but also had a whole career as a therapist. And so for psychology wise, I know that narcissistic personality disorder is a very serious diagnosis, and it belongs in this category of diagnoses that are on a spectrum, of course, but the worst of those would be a psychopath. They all share in common that the people don't have a yeah, and they don't have empathy, or they, have less empathy than normal, those kind of things. But in just wanting to see more kind of informal information about my own personal problem, I was seeing a lot of narcissists use silent treatment, which I'm sure is true. But narcissistic personality disorder is actually extremely rare, and it's a condition that is on the opposite end of what is normal for most humans, which is to have some empathy. And so, a lot of the pop psychology in describing, mostly romantic partners who were emotionally abusive as narcissists, then the other thing is that they always sought out empaths as their special victims, And so it elevated both narcissism and empaths as things that are special and extreme. We're on extreme opposite poles, when there's just so much damaging psychology in between there that, we don't have to go there. And that you are capable of empathy is not a super special human condition. And so I was kind of like, ugh, this does not feel good. And also, if I am just this prey of being an empath, then that puts me in the victim situation. And by the way, narcissistic personality disorder, psychopaths, sociopaths, there ain't anything that can be done about that. You cannot therapize someone into being or doing better in those conditions. So it's pretty hopeless if you're just, I was seeing on the other side of that, the descriptions being the same. I can't help being an empath. So I'm going to be a victim, and I'll always be a victim, and that's just the way it is. So that's not fun. That's not positive. That's not affirming. That's not productive. So I kind of was like, ugh, I don't like that term. I also don't like the narcissistic label as well. I haven't hardly ever seen it be used in a clinical sense, like diagnosed by somebody with a degree and a license. So then in my communities of magical folks, readers, it just kind of bled into there too. Like people that were energetically sensitive started calling themselves empaths. And I was confused because I'm not sure if they also identify it on the pop psychology spectrum of, being a perpetual victim, and just so nice, I just can't help it. I'm so nice and I can't people because I'm just so sensitive, that kind of thing. And in contrast, when I was younger in particular, people were responsible for their own sensitivity. You really spent a lot of time and practice in guarding your energy, making it accessible for readings, and then making it inaccessible for your daily lives. Coming in and out of that spiritual space, that was important to do, that was expected to do, and doesn't seem so true anymore. Like people are just like, I'm just this way. And in mediumship in particular, when you are maybe seeing things that aren't there, hearing things that aren't there, the only difference between the medium experience of a spiritual side and just being like having hallucinations and having psychological issues is control. People that are having delusions and hallucinations, the worst thing about it is the lack of control. They cannot control what's going on. It's very disruptive to their lives. They can't differentiate between, what they're seeing and hearing in like regular earthly plane reality. And so that same idea of control has to apply for any metaphysical talent, including being really sensitive to energy and being able to read energy, being able to even take on the energy, and ultimately to be able to affect that energy and heal that energy for other people. You have to start out with that sensitivity. So it's a huge, huge superpower. And with all power comes responsibility, as Uncle Ben from Spider-Man would say. So it also, when magical folks have been saying, I'm an empath, I still see a lot of victimhood and lack of agency and lack of owning and using your own power. And so I don't like it. I don't like to see it. So as well as being a reader, I'm also a consumer of readings, right? I love getting readings from other people, especially talented ones. And if you have labeled yourself as an empath, I'm less inclined to try you out. And I don't think I'm special or weird or unique in seeing it this way. And if you want to have clients of similar background to me, you might think about updating or changing that, not just the title, but the perspective behind it. That it's pretty much more negative than positive. It's, oh my gosh, and this is so sensitive, and it's very kind of not empowering for you or other people, frankly. So anyway, it's just been on my heart to share this and put it out there. So I'd love to hear your perspective on it and your feedback on it. I realize that this is kind of a hot button issue, and I'm not afraid to lean in and discuss it, or for you to know where I stand. So have a great day, and thank you for watching.